Hi everybody, I'm live. There's no going back now. Hope you're all well. Thanks for joining me. It's a little bit on the late side, but I didn't get as much time as I would have liked to set up tonight, so I was a little bit behind. So tonight I want to talk to you as, what does my title suggest? Social entrepreneurship, social espionage entrepreneurs. Now I'll tell you what that entails in a second, but I suppose just as usual, I'll get a quick check from the chat. If I'm okay sound wise, you can hear me. Any problems, just let me know in the chat. Maybe also let me know if it's okay, and then I can plow on and move ahead. Hope you're all well anyway. Still in one piece. Not arrested for socializing or not getting a virus or any of that stuff, which you know I'm not talking about tonight. Emmanuel Godson's in the chat. Nice to see you here, buddy. I'm looking forward to seeing more of your work when all of this is over. That'll be a good thing. And like I've said before, Emmanuel's paintings, Emmanuel Godson in the chat, very, very good paintings, very good work. Not just for someone I like, but actually genuinely, like, in an absolute sense, he's really good. That's not just a pat on the back for kind of a peer or a buddy. It's really good stuff. Anyways, I'm still waiting for an old 5x5, just to let me know there. If you could. I'm assuming I'm all good. I'm just going to assume I am. I'll keep talking. So what I want to share with you tonight is... yeah, okay, I got my 5x5. I just needed that, you know. But this is kind of more like a little story tonight, and you can bear with me, and if you're not into it, whatever, you know, just as always, like, whatever, take it at face value. Emmanuel says, thanks for the shout out. No bother, I'm just stating fact. And if you want to drop your link, if you have a website for your work or any of that kind of stuff, drop it in the chat and I'll tweet it out later or whatever. I don't have much reach, unfortunately. I've only so much, but if I had more, you know, that'd be good. So yeah, I'll tell you what I want to tell you about tonight. So this is, in a way, like a bit, like I said last night with my previous topic, this isn't so well organized and stuff. I've just pulled out a rabbit hole for you here just to kind of go, or I want to bring you down it with me a little bit. Think of it as a kind of behind the scenes of, if I were making a proper video, this would be my 10 tabs open, looking through all of these things, trying to make connections, and or, you know, even if I didn't make a video out of it, you know, sometimes you go down a rabbit hole and you learn a little bit and you add it to your kind of worldview. So that's me doing this with the screen shared in front of you, and let's have a look at what I was looking at. Now, this was also something I looked at a few months ago and kind of parked a little bit. I kind of shelved it. I was maybe going to make a video. So this is my first time coming across it. I've just revisited it tonight. That's what I've been doing kind of this week, is going back through the diary of old topics that interested me in the past and revisiting them, kind of, you know, kind of roughly revisiting them with you guys here. So this occurred a few months ago. So basically, it's easier for me to just take you through it rather than try to sum it up. A couple of months ago, I seen a tweet by this guy here, Rory Byrne, right? He said, as you can see, if you're an Irish journalist and feel like digging up some mud on far-right groups. Now, of course, far-right, when I see that written, I don't identify with that term or accept it, just for anybody who's trying to, you know, transcribe this. I don't accept that term, but I do accept that certain people will ascribe the term to the kind of views I have falsely. So you get what I mean there. I kind of identify with, I feel like he may be talking about me, even though I'm not far-right and all that, right? So I know he's talking about the kind of politics I'm into, and he's using the wrong term, blah, blah, blah. So in Ireland, using Telegram to organize, my DMs are open. So it's the usual sleuthing between these kind of, or kind of slithering between these kind of weird, like, semi-media, semi-intelligence, semi-tech, semi-whatever people and journalists, which has always been very worrying. And it's not just me. I think, what's his name? Eric Weinstein. I'm not a huge fan of his, but I think he kind of coined the whole media intelligence tech alliance. There's this kind of dangerous relationship between all of these. I've documented it before with Rory McKiernan. If you don't know about that, I'm not going to get into it. This kind of blurring of all these lines, and as soon as I saw this, I kind of thought, okay, well, that's ringing my alarm bell here. And I don't know, maybe he's trolling a bit. Maybe he was looking to throw some dirt out there and just kind of trigger people. I don't know, but it's not so much about him. This is just the beginning of the rabbit hole, and let's go from here. So he put that down. I went, what does he mean by that? How is he helping these people to dig up mud through Telegram groups? My DM, what's this about? Telegram's meant to be secure or whatever. And so obviously the next thing is to look into who he is, right? So if we can do a LinkedIn here, this is publicly available on Google, right? This is no docs or any of that kind of stuff. You search his name, it's the first thing you'll find. Co-founder of Security First. So you just look through some of the stuff on him here. It's this kind of mix between NGO world and kind of almost espionage kind of type of thing. So head of research, head of security and research for Vidair et Credair, and we'll get onto them in a second. But he has a lot of a background here. So there's the Army Reserve Infantry. I could go off there and say he's some kind of intel for Irish Defence Force. I doubt that. It's just whatever, and various things like that. Anyway, Vidair et Credair. Let's just have a quick look at them. So they're more human rights. You'll have to kind of bear with me now because some of this we'll come back to. This will be more this is more holistic than linear. You'll have to forgive me for this, right? So he's part of this group, which has a history and all sorts of things poking out the side of it. All sorts of different intelligence groups. Just people. Like you see, the previous people who worked with them are connected to all sorts of other organizations just like this. So anyway, I see his new thing, which is Security First, which he has set up with another Irish person, is, as you can see here, funded by the Open Technology Fund. And as a Wikipedia article here says, and this is what I'll be getting onto in the end, because this rabbit hole goes rather deep, actually. So there's what's his name? Ben Norton criticized this organization. It's basically as a CIA connected thing. So the controversies and criticism. The OTF, Open Technologies Fund, is part of Radio Free Asia, which has been historically criticized as a propaganda arm of the US government, including members of the US government. As such, OTF support for internet technologies is also criticized as a US government propaganda effort, blah, blah, blah. Christopher Simpson is highly recommended. He's a very interesting author. Christopher Simpson describes the history of the Broadcasting Board of Governments and Radio Free Asia as being established by the American Central Intelligence Agency as psychological warfare projects with a focus on international propaganda efforts. So it was used basically to kind of, it's a regime change color. No links to Open Society Foundation, as far as I know. Although I actually am deeper in the rabbit hole, I did start to see some crossover, but not directly between these two things. But that's just, you go down any rabbit hole deep enough, you'll find something else, right? So that's basically them, right? And I will get back to that deeper kind of CIA level thing because I found two really, really good articles, which I'll link to you in a little while on this. But in the meantime, I'm going to go through this just little rabbit hole. So I've gone. I should have organized this a little bit better. So basically, Rory Byrne, right, he's like got a Skoll fellowship or something like that, and the other one is Ashoka, kind of fellowship between these kind of things. So the list is like works for Vidair et Credair, and then Security First, but also has these kind of little medals or little kind of awards or whatever you want to call it from these various institutions. And these things, what they basically are, is billionaire funded, or pretty much billionaire funded, kind of philanthropy organizations, social change. And it's a thing I've seen in a lot of these. What they call themselves is social entrepreneurs. So they support social entrepreneurs. And when I hear social entrepreneur, my mind is led back to Rory McKiernan, who was getting details on the guys involved, if you're aware of that story. If you're not, I'll leave that for another night. But social entrepreneur, it's a very interesting term. And I think I'd like to go down that little avenue at some point and learn more about it, because it's a very interesting phenomenon. And it's if you have any kind of opinion similar to mine, or really if you're just a normal person, social entrepreneurs don't really represent you. A social entrepreneur is this kind of vaunted position of like, I'm kind of a journalist, I'm kind of an intel, I'm an agent for change, I'm a this, I'm a that, whatever. It's very vague. Now you would say, all right, well, anybody could be that. The difference between these social entrepreneurs and anybody else being that is that if you're a social entrepreneur and you have that status and you're in the ranks, then the money will flow very nicely. No shortage of money, support, empowerment from above, and all of that, which you will see through this Skoll thing. This is related to this Oren Yakubovich guy, slightly connected to Rory Byrne, but not completely relevant here. Another social entrepreneur. So the Skoll Foundation was the foundation set up from the money of Skoll. What's his name? I've lost it now. But Skoll, anyway, is the guy. I don't know his first name, but he was highly involved in eBay, the founding of eBay. So he's basically a billionaire, right? So that's what this does, and funds hundreds of people and hundreds of initiatives all over the place, or whatever, right? And the same with this Ashoka thing. Ashoka, again, is, you could just look this stuff up yourself if you want to. Our priorities: social entrepreneurship, empathy and young change making, organizing for change making. This change making is pretty specific. You know, it is effectively globalism. If you don't understand what globalism is, it's a kind of a holistic worldview that globalists believe in. I think most of you get it, so I won't try to explain it. But they are globalism evangelists, colonialists, ideological colonialists, whatever you want to call it, and they move power in their direction. Well, I suppose you could say they are power. Just to emphasize that point, actually. So you have Ashoka, and you look at partners. And again, this isn't me doing the conspiracy thing on the wall or whatever. The stuff just speaks for itself. I don't need to give you a simplistic conspiracy theory. I can just show you what exists and kind of let you kind of go, yeah, that, you know, I'm not even making a definite theory here. I'm just saying it is what it is. Look at it. It doesn't look good, right? That's all. It speaks for itself. So our partners, this is just one page of like 20 or 50 pages, loads of pages. You have De Groot. I don't know what they are, but you have Deloitte, the accountancy firm. I think they're basically our Deutsche Bank. We have Direct TV, we have Disney, we have DPD, all sorts of things, right? Any of these organizations you go to, just like Ashoka, which are basically handing out tens of millions or lots, I don't know the exact number, don't hold me to it, lots and lots and lots of money, maybe more. And they're handing it out to all these guys like Rory McKiernan's and Rory Burns and all of these different people. And you kind of go, what is this about? Where does this come from? And what is it for? And one of the things that, you know, I often like to try to think, because sometimes you spend so long inside your echo chamber, you forget how another person will view something, their first instinct. And I think a person who isn't into any of this stuff, doesn't watch it or listen to it or think about it, might see some of this off the cuff and say, well, maybe the fact that you go to any of these globalist-y kind of activist pages or whatever, and the reason you see all their funders are like, you know, banks, corporation this, corporation that. Rory Byrne is a security consultant. He is a, someone in the chat is just asking me, who's Rory Byrne? You've got in a little bit late, obviously. Maybe I shouldn't be disrupting it to go back. Security consultant for like activists and stuff like that. Security consultant, whatever that means. We don't ever really quite find out what that means, but it does mean If you're looking for mud on far right groups using Telegram to organize journalists, hit me up. That's what it means. So anyway, a normal person might think, well, yeah, maybe the reason these banks fund them, maybe you're wrong, Garrod, in saying that these people it's all this big strings conspiracy stuff. Maybe it's just the fact that these activists and activist groups have put themselves in the position as the kind of moral arbiters and the good guys, and they kind of hold a knife to the throat of these greedy businessmen who are completely don't care about anything, and just they basically throw a bit of corporate social responsibility money at these activists just to make them leave them alone. You know what I mean? And there's some truth in that, but that's a very myopic way of viewing it. It is also it's not as simple as that. Oh, well, they give money to this and that. They give money to open border stuff because they just, they know the open borders are kind of loud harpies and they know it'll save them trouble. No, they give it because they want to empower that. It's nor one or the other, but it's definitely not. It definitely is these institutions using their power in a way that they want to use it, and funding what they like and elevating what they like. I think that's an obvious point, but the other thing is, like, these are meant to be the good guys, the kind of the ones who are like not so much like the elected politicians or the whatever, but these are meant to be your kind of in transcendent to elected politicians and all of these various things. These people, these general activists, who you don't quite know their names. They're most of them are small potatoes, but they're there and they're working all the time and they're pushing an agenda all the time. They have expertise at this. They're good at it, and they're funded to do it. You kind of go, who are they? Who are all these people, right? And where do they come from? Or what is this all about? Are they just activists who just have a belief and follow their belief? The same way I'm doing now, making a video. I have my beliefs and I try to push my agenda as I see it. Are they just a bunch of people like that? And that's all it is? No. It's there's all this organizational structure from top to bottom on this for almost all of them. And I just wanted to give you a little flavor here. This is more of an aesthetic thing, but just it's how I feel. I want to see what you think of it. I looked at some of the random people working for these this Ashoka thing. One isn't different from another. They're all the same thing, right? But Ashoka. Some of their like people, our people or whatever, right? Still not clear what any of these people do. It's never quite clear. They're there to they're there to tell Irish journalists that they can get mud from them on Telegram. They pop up every now and again. But when you actually go to see, I mean, what do you actually do? It's never quite clear. It's always a bit strange and vague. It's like when someone tells you they're a security management consultant coordinator, or something like that. When someone tells you that's their job, and that feeling where you kind of go, okay, cool. But what do you do every day? What's your actual, what does that entail? I don't know what exactly it is. It's like pushing for change, raising awareness, all this kind of stuff. But it's like, the Dawn is in the house. Always good to see. There is some serious luminescent glow in the dark mofos right there. Absolutely. And I'm going to get on towards that in the end. If ever there was a man to know about this stuff, you're well into this, the Dawn is well into this, lads. And it's mad stuff, and we'll go through it. I'm just diverting from the original tweet that set me down this rabbit hole. I'm just taking a look at this corporate weird stuff for a while, and then we'll get back into some of that more hardcore CIA kind of stuff. And I'm not even joking. Like this, it's real, if you think it's outlandish. But anyway, back to this, right? These weird change agent people who just, and again, for example, you go to the chipper and you say to the person at the counter, you say, hi, could I have a bag of chips, please, and a burger? And they make the burger, and you give them your money from your wallet. They take the money, it goes in the till, it goes to the owner of that establishment, and then that establishment owner pays the person who gave you the chips some wages. So you could actually see the money, the chips, and they work hard, like, exactly what they're doing, right? With these guys, it's like, I don't know exactly what you're doing. And also the whole thing of like, I give the money to the person at the till and it goes to the manager. So the whole economic situation makes sense here. It completely breaks down when the money is coming from all these billionaires. And And just the question is why? And people are way too quick to dismiss, the billionaires just give money just to look good. But why does that look good? Why is that the definition of what looks good? Because these people exist to make it look that way. It's a perpetual kind of cycle. Anyway, so you just look at these people again. You go, these are our moral superiors. These are I don't know if I want to say the left. It's not really the left at all. It really isn't. It's kind of neoliberal. But they are the kind of like what we're meant to see as the moral guiders of our whole world or something, right? So you would think, oh yeah, they want equality. They want whatever it is, right? All this stuff. They must be working class. They must be people who, the people who never got picked for the, to go see the mayor, never got picked to see the mayor in school because they were seen as a bit kind of like the scumbags, the kind of council estate guys, the kind of whatever's, the people overlooked. And, that's a silly analogy, but it makes sense to me for some reason. The kind of people who are disenfranchised in society, who aren't part of the elite and all of that. I know my school analogy might sound funny, but it does make sense to me. This kind of non-elite, this kind of underclass and overlooked set of society. Maybe these billionaires, if they have such good conscience and they want equality and all that, so the money filters down to give these people jobs. Local activists who say, we want drugs off our streets, we want, positive, we want boxing gyms for the young guys, we want to, those good local community guys, money for those guys, right? No. Nope. Just look at these guys. You have Bob or whatever, right? But you get down to Diane Dupré Latour, right? Come on. Stéphane Gigande. Is that a man? Or anyway, I'm not trying to abuse, right? But I'm just saying that's the type of person. Salome Berlioz, right? Come on. These are all, I don't know these people personally. Like, I could be wrong on one of them. But generally speaking, all the kids of rich parents who just kind of swan around college, find themselves for a while, do this, do that. These are the people who are being chosen to just sit around and push all of this change, right, by billionaires. And we're meant to think that this is good. Look, Vanessa, Vanessa Labourdet would fit right in an estate, in a, like, come on, these people literally look like caricatures of elites. And these are only the foot soldiers. Anyway. There's more on, Accenture fund one of these. I've kind of lost track of it because I just did this tonight. And again, you just look into Accenture, you know what I mean? They're funding some of this stuff. Their Fortune 500 company, revenues of 43.2 billion. Come on. I'm just going to check on the chat there to see if there's anything going crazy. Maybe I have something on my face or whatever. Nothing. Okay, so everything's cool. So yeah, this is just a side point. Again, this is a rabbit hole, so I chuck and jive from one side to the other. It's not all linear, but whatever. This is just something I found on my way. The Skoll Foundation from Jeffrey Skoll, this billionaire or whatever, who funds all this social change and blah blah blah. Also, social entrepreneurship in focus through documentary initiative to continue through 2013. So this is old, but this is the kind of thing that's happening. Additional 1 million granted, and it goes blah blah blah. We support this and that and the other, right? Again, there's a reason why you can very rarely. Sometimes they exist, but very rarely can you sit down and watch some kind of documentary from Sundance or Esteemed or whatever kind of documentaries and stuff like that and identify with them. Your point of view or your worldview put forth, or the big power elite as you see it being exposed. No, it's always the big power elite, in the way that other people, maybe from a billionaire's point of view, sees it. You can very rarely identify with this high culture, art, music, stuff like that. It's not because people who, of my point of view, are Philistines by any stretch. It's that the arts themselves, and this could be a whole other video, the arts funding in Ireland from the state itself is totally driven towards, you'll have like all these theatre productions and this and that funded by, like, I've seen like Irish Equality Week funded by the Arts Council and Smirnoff Ice, this kind of thing. And all of these crappy art stuff which are sometimes explicitly political against the people like us. So it's worse than us being excluded. We're actually attacked by it. And this is just another example of it. You take one look at the skull. I'm just showing you what happens when you yourself. There's too much to grab onto. This is just a little side avenue here as I was going down my rabbit hole, and I'm like, yeah, so it's a social entrepreneur trying to like bollocks you on the internet, like to like dig mud on you and give it to journalists. On the other hand, then the same place where some of this money comes from, and I'm not drawing the link between Byrne and this directly, but they're in the same world. He is a fellow of this Skoll thing or whatever. So you get it from all angles. You're like, oh my God, this world is ran by billionaire interests. And yesterday I was talking about the same with in a way related to China and investor programs and stuff. This whole world of billionaires keeps popping up. And people think that the billionaire thing, billionaire, it's like a big yellow taxi, like the song, they paid paradise and put up a parking lot, and it's so obvious and black and white to see, oh, the billionaire, he's greedy. He's like the guy from Dukes of Hazzard, the rich guy or something like that. And you're it's never that simple. You have to look at it and just don't look at some caricature. Look at billionaires. Take all of the billionaires and see what agenda they all seem to have in unison and how they push it. And then ask yourself if billionaires are necessarily great people, or like these, Accenture, this, I don't even know what they do, multinational professional services company. Come on. A lot of these companies, what they're involved in is efficiencies and all of these things. For example, subcontracting. So where an institution used to have its cleaner who they had for 40 years and they well looked after and all of that stuff. Now the efficiency means that it's a contracting firm with more ruthless conditions for the workers, and the workers are all foreigners, basically, right? And they have no backup, and all of these industries are ruthless and cruel in what they actually ultimately do. So the idea that they give money, maybe they are good. No, they're not. This isn't a caricature of saying billionaires are all bad people. Personally, it's just a more general point than that. Anyway, so where was I? What the hell is this tab? I'm just looking at I was looking up Ashoka, and I was putting in far right and neo-Nazi and all of this kind of stuff, which of course are words none of us identify with, but we know that they falsely attribute to people who have normal patriotic and nationalist beliefs. Just to be clear, funding all of these de-radicalizers apparently. And again, it's like, look, I don't really care what goes on. America isn't my problem. American social fabric, but I'm not pointing the finger at like this whole thing of African Americans, point the finger at them. But like, again, over in America, like 50% of homicide is carried out by African Americans, who are like 10% of the population or whatever it is, right? It's, if anyone was looking at violence and disproportionality and all of this stuff, this whole thing of the one I found here is some of these people who are derad were talking about right, but they didn't even say far right or any of that. They just said right wing. People are all of this into violence. I'm like, this is all nonsense. So where is the paid? Why don't they fund? Anyway, that's a bit of a basic talking point, but you get what I mean. It's just so, whatever it is. Anyway, let me see. Oh, here's just a bit on Videre. Yeah, just to get back to earlier. Videre Credere, right? Or Videre, however they pronounce that. I'm not very cultured. But so just taking a look, and he's not with them anymore. This Rory Byrne guy, the originator of this tale, he's with Security First, but he was with this Videre Credere thing. And you just see, again, I don't want to do that thing where you just mention things and kind of in a knowing tone and act like there's a big conspiracy. Again, I'm not stating one very simplistic conspiracy theory or anything here. I'm just showing you some stuff and just pointing out themes that exist. So you scroll through their website and it doesn't take long. There may be no better example of maximizing the power of technology to hold governments accountable, blah, 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 blah. And the quote is from Dr. Rajiv J. Shah, president of the Rockefeller Foundation and former USAID administrator. Now, USAID, of course, like Irish Aid and all of the things, are instruments of social change in countries of where they end up. Trust me, like in a lot of African countries, Middle East, everywhere, a lot of these NGO people are effectively, they're either spies or propagandists, and most of them wouldn't even be aware that they're either of those things, but they are. It might be trying to put a political agenda in a country like Zambia or somewhere like that, but they are, or they're trade, they're dealing in deals for resources and all of this stuff, aid, corruption, all of this stuff, right? So US aid is effectively an arm of the US state, right? It's not just for the good of everybody it serves. And the Rockefeller Foundation, again, I don't want to get all Illuminati triangles and all that stuff by just mentioning the Rockefeller Foundation, but seriously, the Rockefeller Foundation, there's no smoke without fire, right? And then we're back to what we see with the likes of Storyful. Fidere, Credere, what do they even do? They verify information there. It's all very vague. What it seems like, as the Don said, is glow in the dark to me, a lot of this stuff. And we'll get to that in a second. But so they work with or partner with or whatever, Al Jazeera, BBC, New York, all of them. So anyway, moving on. Security first. So this is the current thing. So it's not quite sure what they do. The quote here I felt was funny as well. Now I feel safe. Journalist, Sub-Saharan Africa. Didn't half make that one up, lads. But I see there's a 5G debate going on in the chat. Jesus, lads. Is there any escaping it? Anyway, it's not my, it's not my fight. So, I mean, I don't know why this page is open, but it was, and now I'm kind of trying to figure out why. About. Oh, this is important. This is important. I know I'm happy. Okay, so bear with me. Security first. We'll find training. Okay. Or sorry, not training, but funding. Damn. Should I be putting a song on in the meantime? Because I want to find the funding for you. Because it's important to the next part of this presentation. Ah, yes. There we go. Xenophone says, rename your channel. Garrod Murphy. Rename my channel to what? I mean, okay, maybe. I'm just checking. Okay, I'm just checking what you're saying here, guys. It's hard to resist. So, funding. We aim to publish all of our information for free. We are grateful for grant-making organizations that have made this possible. Umbrella, which is kind of like a part of this security first thing, back to Rory Byrne here. Umbrella was launched with the generous support of the Open Technology Fund. Now, we just need to go back to the Open Technology Fund, which has been criticized. Or it's not been criticized. It has been criticized, but it's just a fact that they are a subsidiary of Radio Free Asia, which is basically a subsidiary ultimately of the CIA. And this is all statecraft or kind of like deep state level stuff. And their funding, this Security First was funded by the Open Technology Fund. And alas, the flattery, from my perspective and from our perspective here, this is the end result. Like when you look through all of the, like, we endeavor to lead and coordinate and share the activism space, and to all of this weird language where you're reading the website and you're going, what do these guys actually do? Well, here's an example of where I can see what he does. This is what he does. This is an easier way of seeing what he does than reading the website, which is all hard to make out, because you could just watch what he's doing in action here, which is this. This is the kind of thing he does, some of it anyway. And it's ultimately this weird arcane organization is funded by Open Technology Fund. Now, no, I'm not into technology, but whatever. Say one of you guys is into technology and you want to do some technology and say, hey, I want to do some technology and set up a website for my activism. Why don't Open Technology fund you? Why won't they fund you? How do we know that they won't fund you? Because we do. It's because you are not what they're looking for. You're the directly opposite of what they're looking for. And then the converse of that question, why do they fund Rory Byrne? again, the converse, because he is in line with what they're doing. Exactly. Lockstep, right? You would have to be, or that's the logical deduction I'm making anyway, right? What am I saying? I'm seeing my name here, like with someone saying MI5 next to it. That's funny. I'm just sorry. I do like to have sing a song. Someone says, "Yeah, maybe." Lads, do not engage with an MI5 plant. Is this me? I mean, I would ban that from the chat personally. I actually might, because it's just. I mean, it's like, and then the whole thing is like he's running scared because he's foiled or something like that. It's not. It's just like this is stupid. It's stupid. 2 seconds now. I just want to see what the story. I'm just curious. It's not. I'm not even being triggered or any of that. I'm just curious. Anyway, whatever. Look, who cares? So sometimes it's better not to look at the chat, isn't it? But yeah. So that's the. I mean, again, you don't have to be, crazy conspiracy theorist here to just say it's a kind of a, what's the word when something is self-evident? It's some Latin phrase or whatever, right? It's just kind of self-evident, really. It's not a bold claim. It's just an obvious claim. They fund him because they want to fund him, and why do they want to fund him? Because he's does what they want, basically. Unless they fund people at random out of a lottery thing or whatever, right? Anyway, I back up the obvious points sometimes a bit too much. It's obvious, and it's all a bit vague. Anyway. There was actually a page I really wanted to go to, and I couldn't find it along the way. Let's go back here. Okay, so I'm getting towards the end here, but there's something I do want to find, if you would bear with me, because it's worth it. So just hang in there, right? So security first. Okay, I'm just going to have to go. Bear with me, lads. It's worth it, because it is just making a point. It's a point I've been making for a little while, and it's oh lads, it's I need to back myself up on this. So would they ever just tell us? There's a woman or a girl, a woman, a lady who did security first with Rory Byrne, and she set up a different thing as well, which is so funny because I had to. It's an example, basically. You know, the way I was talking about a while ago, that some of these organizations, you try to figure out what they actually do, and it's completely unclear. And I can't find that thing right now, but I want to. And I had it just a while ago. It was in my tabs. And I must have closed it or something like that. Oh no, there it is. Yeah, brilliant. Okay, I was a little bit lost there. Hopefully I didn't lose too many. I've actually gained viewers. That's funny. But I gained viewers when I shut up, when I wasn't talking so much. But so you can see that the Digital Resilience Center. So that was set up by, okay, it's not there, but the partner in Security First team, maybe it'll mention her name, Holly Kilroy, right? Irish by the sound of it. So I had a look at this, and first weird thing was that when you look up Digital Resilience Center, PwC, which is again, what are PwC? They're just this big company. They're like accounting or something like that. Multinational professional service network of firms headquartered in London. So basically like a Fortune 500 type of thing. Again, what they do, what don't they do, 42.4 billion USD dollar revenue. So, you get the kind of thing we're talking about. I just look up Digital Resilience Center because that's what is on her LinkedIn or whatever, right? That's her new thing after Security First. And, the first link that comes up here is PwC related. Now, I clicked on it and I couldn't figure out what the link was directly, but they were linking to it. So there's some connection there. It's like, that's again the same theme I'm talking about, which is like this connection between huge money and these weird organizations that you can't quite figure out what they are. And that's the point I want to make with this. So, Center for Digital Resilience. Now, I'm no genius, right? But I'm no idiot either, right? I can read, I can absorb information to some extent, and I'm struggling. So let's together, you and me, try to figure out what this actually ultimately is. Building resilient systems to keep civil society safe online. I'm none the wiser after that. Our work protects civil society and empowers activists to regain civic space. Okay. Not quite sure what that means. We believe digital security is, I have a rough idea. It's something to do with digital security and activists. But beyond that, I don't really know. Digital security is a collective effort. We work with partners to bolster the digital strength and wellness of every individual within a community. I don't know. I live in a community. I'm Irish, the Irish community. What community? What are we talking about here? I don't know. Our goal, we aim to not only ensure timely and effective responses for our communities, but to reduce their need for emergency response in the first place. We offer a variety of services through our local partner organizations. Strengthen the digital wellness of your community. And what else have we got? I mean, it goes on. We operate as a network of communities working hand in hand with trusted local partners. Security assessments, incident response. So I get it. There's some online digital security type of vibe going on here, but for who? And what's the economic transaction here? Like, what's the incentive structure of this economic relationship that goes on? And you know, again, I'm back to my chipper example. A person buys chips, pays money. The money goes to the owner. He pays the worker who gives you chips, right? So it's like we understand the how and the why of all that, right? What's the how and the why of this? And it just doesn't get much clearer. A secure help desk. So like I went into this as all a little bit vague again, but it's like, here's the little visual example they're giving you. I think my Facebook account just got hacked, and they say, okay, first thing is change your password. Well, I could tell you that, but anyway, I assume they have some kind of tech thing, but again, it's not clear. And if it was clear and it was straightforward and easy, then I think they'd just be able to describe it that way. And again, why does it go back to, if it's helping activists and all of this kind of stuff, why do I find it when I look up PwC? Unless it's a different type of one. I don't know. Maybe they're not the same thing. Anyway, yeah, do smash the like button, lads. I see it. Sean Mack says in the chat, thank you. But anyway, so I just wanted to make, that was maybe a bit of an unnecessary diversion. Here's the goods. So if you're watching and you're thinking of leaving, do not do that. Stay for just another 5-10 minutes, right? Because it all leads to this. This is where it gets a bit more conspiratorial, but it's true. This is a really good article. There's too much to read here. But I'm going to link this in the chat for any of you who want to read it afterwards. Sorry, Niall. Niall McConnell says he's lost. You'd have to have been here from the start. Hopefully it makes sense for people who were here all along. I hope so. But if you just came in now, I'm talking about, how to even sum it up, social espionage entrepreneurs, as the title says. That's as good as a summation as I can give you now as I'm doing it. Maybe the chat can tell you. So, Internet privacy funded by spooks, a brief history of the BBG. I'm going to read some of this. The BBG was formed in 1999 and runs a $721 million annual budget. It reports directly to Secretary of State John Kerry, who is now someone else, but whatever, and operates like a holding company for a host of Cold War era CIA spin-offs and old school psychological warfare projects. Radio Free Europe, Radio Free Asia, Radio Marty, Voice of America, Radio Liberation from Bolshevism, blah, 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 right? So it's a US state thing. Someone's tagging me. Check to see if there's a contact page, any names on it to research. Okay, I don't want to get lost. I don't want to get, with respect, I will get lost if I try to figure out what's going on in the chat here. But anyway, and by the way, all of these sources, listen, you could check this out and be like, this guy's actually whatever. I'm kind of reading this at face value. So whatever, the source you can read yourself. I'm taking it more or less at face value. And I have been reading about a lot of this stuff and it checks out. So anyway, today the congressionally funded federal agency is also one of the biggest backers of grassroots and open source internet privacy technology. These investments started in 2012 when the BBG launched Open Technology Fund, which is fund Security First, which is Rory Byrne, who is this guy who wants to get into all of our telegrams and give all of the information to journalists in some way. An initiative housed within and run by Radio Free Asia, a premier BBG property that broadcasts into communist countries like North Korea, Vietnam, Laos, China, and Myanmar. The BBG endowed Radio Free Asia technology, endows it with a multi-million-dollar budget and a single task to fulfill the US congressional global mandate for internet freedom. Now, the mandate for internet freedom in the US, you can take that internet freedom with the same level of freedom as, you know, bombing freedom into Iraq or whatever, right? It's a sin. Spreading freedom is a synonym for US colonial interests. And that's not even US like the average American. This is the US empire, not like heartland American, average Americans, right? No. It's an empire, it's a state. It's a kind of a deep state type of thing. And effectively it's kind of like a global state, with the exception of China, Iran, Russia, some places like that, the kind of global West, or whatever you would call it, the broader global West. So it goes on, right? And this is, I highly encourage reading most of this, but I just want to get to a point back to Christopher Simpson here. Christopher Simpson, author of Blowback, America's Recruitment of Nazis. So apparently the Americans recruited Nazi agents or something like that. I'm not sure what the details of that was, but details the extent of these psychological warfare projects. Christopher Simpson basically talks a lot about this kind of Cold War era psychological warfare type of stuff from the CIA, which again sounds a bit tinfoil hatty, but it's not really with the amount of stuff that is public and like accepted by all people, not uncontroversial stuff that came out about the CIA, COINTELPRO and all that stuff is not, these are not conspiracy theories. These are just accepted facts and realities that people know about. They're not even debated at all by anyone. They just are what they are. Anyway, Simpson talks a lot about this stuff. So CIA-funded psychological warfare projects employing Eastern, and this just reminds me so much of the Rory McKiernans, the Rory Burns here, the Holly Kilroy or whatever her name is, and all sorts of these various intelligence kind of tech. You had a lot of it happen during the abortion, the Eighth Amendment referendum. These people who were talking about threats from Russia, right? Non-existent, really. Or what was it? Some foreign interference and all of this stuff, but who were like tracking data all over the internet and then kind of isolating specific things and being like, our democracy is being threatened and this kind of stuff. I noticed all, and I was like, where are all these people coming from? Who are they? And they're all like ethical hackers and all of this stuff. And they're all like so lockstep with globalist interests and Fine Gael and EU and this and that. Where are they all? I've forgotten their names now. If any of you in the chat can remember, there's a couple of guys. There was one who was like transparency referendum. We are an open, unbiased watchdog of the internet integrity for the referendum, right? Which completely skewed against one side and was totally set up. All of these kind of figures, weird kind of things, all of these people, like, again, the whole question of this whole video is, what are they? Who are they? Who creates them? What are they there for? How do they exist? How are they funded? All of that. What's their objective? When I think of all these people, I think of all these people when I read this passage here and I go, wow, Simpson's talking about a different time, but it resonates with me about now. See, even though it's in Ireland as opposed to some of the places here, and it's a different time. So anyway, CIA-funded psychological warfare projects employing Eastern European emigres became major operations during the 1950s, consuming tens and even hundreds of millions of dollars. This included underwriting most of the French Pays de Liberté movement, paying the bills of the German League for Struggle Against Inhumanity, some other group, and financing half dozen free jurist associations, a variety of European federalist groups, the Congress for Cultural Freedom, magazines, news services, book publishers, and much more. These were very broad programs designed to influence world opinion at virtually every level, from illiterate peasants in the fields to the most sophisticated scholars in prestigious universities. They drew on a wide range of resources: labor unions, advertising agencies, college professors, journalists, and student leaders, to name a few. So this whole arm of this kind of, and I'm not, the thing is, to call it US imperialism is kind of misleading in a way, because US imperialism is not strictly, again, about the US people, the American people. It absolutely isn't anything to do with them. It's empire based. And to be honest, the way I see that empire is that empire stretches far beyond just America now. It's not a national thing. This kind of deep state kind of type of CIA thing is, they're not like a national, intelligence thing just for them. It's more the broader West. It's easier to list people who aren't in that orbit than countries that are. So, for example, Iran, China, Russia, some people are kind of pariahs outside of it, but the majority of the world, the global hegemon, is the US. It's this kind of global thing. So instead of thinking yes, it does emanate from the American state, the US state, but it really is just like a globalist state type of thing. So it exists in Ireland, and it exists here and there. It's not all directly like, it's not like some kind of caricature from the past, maybe so much. It's more diffuse than maybe it even was in the 1950s. But that's so true. So it went around everybody. Labor unions, advertisers, and now it would be banking, this, that, everywhere. I see it everywhere. And I don't know, am I just going mad or what? But, when I see all of these strange, nebulous actors like this coming from all angles, all with a specific political agenda. And to be fair, I'm kind of proud when I find myself or people who have similar point of view than I seem to be ultimately the kind of target of a lot of this stuff. And there's others too, some left-wing populists and various people, but this kind of nationalist right or nationalist kind of whatever you want to call it, it seems to be a big target of all of this stuff. So it's kind of a privilege to me to be at the receiving end of some of that stuff, if it is so dastardly and top down as this is. There's a thing here called, I just found this before I went live, In-Q-Tel, formerly, so you'll see it here. This In-Q-Tel thing is an American not-for-profit venture capital. So this is the thing as well. It's the outsourcing of espionage. It's the outsourcing of propaganda, of psychological warfare into all these little companies and activists all over the place. No longer is it the spook in the kind of the old-fashioned car with the Trilby hats following you around a corner. It's much more tech-based. It's much more diffuse. And, it's kind of tech hacking, ethical hacking, they call it. It's journalism, propaganda. It's all of these kind of things. Data tracking, blah, 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 all of this stuff. And it's outsourced to kind of, so this guy, Rory Byrne, yeah, he doesn't wear a Trilby and drive around the place like that. Many stages removed in a way, but it all comes back to the same thing, which makes it that bit, to me, more devious and scary, actually, because it is kind of a bit like the Matrix, because it's so all-enveloping. And here's an example where it's a private firm, but it works at creating these technologies for the CIA. That's its job. So it's kind of semi-private. It invests in high-tech companies for the sole purpose of keeping the Central Intelligence Agency and other intelligence agencies equipped with the latest information technology. The name In-Q-Tel, blah, blah, blah. So you can see some of the various technologies that they work on. All of these different things here. Material science. So these guys are actually creating hardware, I suppose you could say. Or, well, it's actually software, but actual software. Whereas, and I bring this up just to make the point that if the CIA and this kind of world of this web of things funds things like this, well, they do the same for activists and technology and even lecturers, like the Christopher Simpson quote there, universities, labor unions. This money finds its way around. And again, it's not all like you're approached in a room to be a spy or a this or a that. It's more just like this tit, so to speak, right? There's this big globalist espionage, intelligence, propaganda tit that ultimately feeds all of these people. And that's basically it. So did I say, I should have said teat maybe to be a bit more to be a bit more respectable. But anyway, sorry. So there was just this other, the uses and abuses. I'll link to this one as well. Again, it's just a random WordPress I found. I don't know who the author is or whatever, but to be honest, I trust a random WordPress I know nothing about more than like the Washington Post any day. I'd roll the dice sooner with the former. So this one is just kind of referencing the other article I read. Internet privacy funded by spooks. Federal money has been subsidizing the creation of whistleblower technologies and private tools like Tor. I don't know where I'm really going with this. These implied collaborations are often in reality a near synchronization of internal operations, personal and funding passageways. For example, Freedom House, a neoconservative leaning NGO. Oh, and by the way, that's the other factor I have to mention, if I didn't already. That's a key aspect here. Massive. I can't believe I haven't talked about it more. You've kind of this weird, vague media intelligence kind of synchronicity between these things. You've various things like that, and the big one is NGO, social entrepreneurs or whatever, and then NGOs, because NGOs are just what? This NGO exists. We have 20 staff. We coordinate with all these tech firms, blah, blah, blah. We coordinate with journalists. We coordinate with everyone. We coordinate with the state, everything else. And yet they are just in the middle of it all. And they're non-government actors. What do you do? What are you there for? We're a bit of everything. We're pushing change. We're pushing this. We're targeting activists, for example, like being against the far right. So being against a lot of people here, even though we're not, right? Even though we're moderates and centrists. But, they wrongly ascribe that to us. And their job is to isolate, target, harass, and destroy certain people and their NGOs. And a lot of this goes straight back to this tit I was talking about a while ago. Very, very insidious. And when you think about it, and when you look at all those different arms of it, it does start to get scary, because you start to go, wow, society is so ran, like global Western society, I suppose you could call it, is so ran from in deep, like Christopher Simpson said, influencing public opinion at virtually every level, from illiterate peasants in the field to the most sophisticated scholars, and like influencing all levels of society. It's the fact that we're trying to push against this is it. It's a bitter pill to swallow, and it's a big wall to climb, or it's a big hill to climb. So I don't know, but I'm into it anyway. I'll stick with it. Sorry, I'll just get back to my point. So, for example, Freedom House, a neoconservative leaning NGO, receives partial funding from the National Endowment of Democracy, a quasi-NGO that is subsidized by the US government. In another instance, the media operations of Radio Free Europe often work in tandem with the Jamestown Foundation, an American Committee for Peace in the Caucasus, each of these maintain nearly identical personnel and management teams. And the American Committee for Peace in the Caucasus itself operates through Freedom House's Washington, D.C. offices. I noticed a lot of addresses for a lot of these things were in Washington, D.C. as well. So the spider web runs very broad and very wide. And it all comes back to little old Rory Byrne here. If you're an Irish journalist and feel like digging up, I'm just going to swap far right with nationalist, because he's wrongly using the term far right, wrongly using it. If you're an Irish journalist and feel like digging up some mud on Irish nationalist patriot groups in Ireland using Telegram. And my whole story here began with looking at this guy and being like, who the hell is this guy? And it leads, and I don't think I'm making too many leaps here. I know I went off left and right here and kind of off a bit, but in general, the thread I've drawn tonight speaks for itself. I mean, he is the founder of Security First and Umbrella, and that is funded by the Open Technologies Fund, which is effectively a subsidiary of Radio Free Asia, which is effectively, or is a subsidiary of the BBG, which is further a subsidiary to the US State Department / CIA. So I hope you don't call me a tinfoil hat. I think that makes sense. And it is among us. So anyway, that was my story for tonight, basically, right? It just, you know, I said, why not? And I still haven't finished my tea. I think I'll give you another tune for tonight. As I'm going, because I don't like to leave on politics too much. I must make a habit of not doing that. So I can't play it now because I don't want to play a song and just be looking at you. But I will put it in the chat just to cleanse the palate, because politics and all that, you know, and this kind of stuff can be a little bit whatever. Maybe put this on when I'm done to kind of cleanse your palate. It's a film I watched recently, a Hong Kong film, very good film. It's called In the Mood for Love, and it's got a soundtrack to it. It's just kind of like a 4-minute theme song for the film. This video is just it on repeat for an hour, whatever. I'm not asking you to listen to it for an hour, but so it's just a couple of minutes long, and I just find it very lovely music. So that's basically. Chopper says, Garrod, any thoughts on shape-shifting lizards powered by 5G? Listen, I think there's plenty active conspiracy going on in the world. That is definitely true. That can be backed up. That you don't need to send someone a 5-hour YouTube video, or you could just point to 1 or 2 things. People will get insulted at me, like dismissing their theory or whatever. I've no dog in the fight on that, but just there's enough actually going on without having to resort to shape-shifting lizards. Colette Boland says, great show, Garrod. Be more confident. We all love you. God bless. I am confident. I may give off a veneer of kind of a bumbling kind of self-deprecation or something like that. Maybe it's just the kind of habit I have, but I'm confident. But thank you, and God bless. I appreciate that. So yeah, I suppose I will leave it at that. I'll be back tomorrow night. I'm not sure what I'll be talking about, but I'll figure something out in the meantime. So good night, and thanks for watching. See ya.